BM8 Unfiltered.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode in a series of interactive shows that we are calling BM8 Unfiltered. This particular program is designed so that you are interactive with the person that you intend to put in office. You get to ask the questions and get to learn about this particular person. The idea is that when the person is actually in office, you don't start wondering or start new things about them because you would have known who you are actually voting for. My name is Buchia, and this is BM8 Unfiltered, where I discuss with Honorable Brian Mundubile, who is presidential aspirant for the 2026 general. Remember, you're sending us those voice notes on the WhatsApp number that's been shared, and also on the live. You can write us your comments and contributions, and they will be read live as we continue with the program. Honorable, welcome, and how's been 2026? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Buchi. Thank you very much for hosting me this evening.
How's the year starting? How's the family? How have you been?
Family is good. And the year is good so far. I just came back from Northern Province yesterday, and we had a wonderful time in Northern Province. So I think the year is the starting off a good note.
It's just 3 weeks into the year, and already we've seen you very busy. I love that you've already mentioned Kasama, Northern Province, where you were touring with a lot of campaigns there for an important election that happened there. But we'll get into that a little later. For now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the Chawama victory. Mr. Bright Nundwe of FDD and Tonse Alliance is the winner of that particular seat. How important is this victory, seeing that August is just around the corner?
Well, Butch, that victory is very important for the Zambian people. The people that voted in that election are the people that were promised to buy milimi at 50 kwacha and are now paying 400 kwacha for a bag. The voters in Chawama are the voters who were promised that fuel cost 10 kwacha per liter.
Yeah.
Now fuel is at 30 kwacha. Some of the people who live in Chawama are among the farmers that have not been paid for the maize supplied to FRA. So generally, Buchi, when you go to Chawama and get a cross-section of the people living there, an average Zambian is represented in that particular community. So what the people of Chawama are going through, to a great extent, is what all the other Zambians are going through. Obuchushi, buli Chawama, everyone actually now Kasama. So if that election was in Kasama, the result would have been very different. So I think that it's a very important result for the Zambian people, most importantly, because they've given feedback to the country, which you've been reading these things. People are saying there is no opposition. One, not to won by up to 20%. Takwa opposition in Bali 2020. Now, that sounds very arrogant. As leaders, as a people, don't have a kubantu. Abantu able to pelama. So if, as a member of parliament, as a leader, I'm elected by the people, as a president, I'm elected by the people, it's not me to say until 2090, or it's not my party to say until 2090. But the people that I serve should be the ones to tell me, to say, sir, you've achieved. You promised us a bag of milimi would cost 50 kwacha, it's now at 25. Sir, you ought to continue, because instead of fuel being at 11 kwacha, it's now at 6 kwacha. So that is what you expect from the people once you serve. But the moment you make statements that make the voter seem as if they do not matter, they will show you that they did matter. So that's what the people of Chawama did.
Well, this is BM8 Unfiltered, and because it's unfiltered, I want you to be very, very straight with this particular answer on this one. In terms of unity of the opposition, what does this particular victory say about the unity of the opposition? Because the word around has been that the opposition is not united. So what lessons are you getting from the Chawama victory as far as opposition unity?
Well, first of all, if you saw what happened in Chawama, the number of political parties that were competing in that particular election, but the competition was just between two political parties. So clearly, the Zambian people again have spoken. Which you must understand politics. It's all about the people. It starts with the people and ends with the people. They are the masters. So there may have been 10 political parties contesting. But the competition, the contest was just between two political parties. What were the Zambian people saying? Let's take, for instance, I saw one of the polling stations, a political party scoring 4, others were getting 1. It may not mean that they only have one member in that particular locality, but their members realized that if we thinly spread the vote, we'll end up losing to the ruling party. So some of the members of the other political parties simply went and gave the party that they thought was going to win the election the vote, because they've got an objective to achieve. Balishwa kutinga twa ama vote twa posaika twa lusa ababantu ninike unga aba ninike fertilizer aba ninike fuel bala wina and bala kwata feedback ya kutila wale bomba fego. It must be understood, Buchi, that an election is a channel through which citizens give feedback to government. So that particular election gave feedback to government. If President Hakainde Hichilema and his cabinet are serious what they're doing, they should immediately meet, begin to address. We expect them to change their approach as they respond to the citizens. Because they've been saying, look, we've worked, it's 95%, need 2090, need Kwenyu. So through yesterday's defeat, Kwenyu is buried. It means Kwenyu, there's been nothing going on. I've always said this, Buchi. See, when you look at Kwenyu, Kwenyu is a way of amplifying small projects and make them seem big. You get my point? Yeah. Yeah, because the performance by government has been dismal. And then they've gone to these small projects and using Kwenyu, the Kwenyu formula, they try to make them look big. But the people of Chawama actually responded that look, forget about Kwenyu. The CDF has been saying about is not enough. The free education is not properly implemented. That's clear feedback against the policy that government is putting in place right now. Yeah. So what government is supposed to do, they're supposed to now go back to the drawing board and look at the free education policy, for instance, where you have 120 learners against one teacher. Okay? You have the CDF, for instance, to be the only route through which development is being implemented. Yeah. So the people of Chawama have actually given government a very good feedback to rethink their policies. Well, they've got a few months to go. I don't really know, whether they're able to really change the situation.
I love that you've spoken to a lot of the challenges that the people of Chawama are facing and also the general public, but you still haven't responded to whether the opposition is united or whether this particular win is an answer to unity in the opposition. Is that what this is actually pointing to?
Well, for instance, if we take Tonse, by the way, I serve as the national chairperson for parliamentary affairs under Tonse. So I'll speak authoritatively, under Tonse. If you look at Tonse, Tonse has a number of political parties, but they only fielded a united candidate. Okay, so Tonse, the members of Tonse did not field candidates individually. Okay, they only fielded one candidate. So if your question is about opposition unity, I think Tonse demonstrated that, because maybe 5, 6 political parties all rallied behind a single candidate who was Bright Inundwe. Yeah. Of course, we don't expect to achieve 100% unity within the opposition. Yeah, but I think that the results that came out of Chawama yesterday could encourage other political parties to come together.
Chawama, this election in Chawama, we say, maybe was not supposed to happen because for all intents and purposes, this was a by-election that was caused solely by the speaker, Madam Nelly Muti, who went ahead and caused this particular election. What is your message to the executive as far as prudent use of our very small resources as a country?
Government should stop wasting money. That Chawama election was a waste of money. We all know why Honorable Tasila Lungu was away from Parliament. The same government that took the report and it turns round to remove the Honorable Member of Parliament from her constituency. That was an unnecessary cost. Government should embark on projects or developmental policies that build the country and not destroy the country. You know, we don't expect government to behave emotionally, you know, against certain in order to make certain decisions. So the Chawama one is such an example. It was unnecessary cost altogether. It was happening at a time that government was failing to pay farmers. When you look at it morally, you actually discover that you know, government does not sufficiently care for its people. They could spend money on a by-election. Shimbiwatu akona could be 7. Okay, they also paid some councillors in Kasama, but farmers do not pay. Yeah, so to question, that's an unnecessary cost.
Interesting. Let's go back to Kasama, where you're just coming back from. You had very heavy crowds during the mayoral by-election campaign, and it ended up in some altercations that happened with the police. How do you sum up your experience in Kasama? What was it like? Let's hear it from you.
Well, first of all, Butch, we were well received. When we got into Kasama, the residents of Kasama gave us a very good reception. And for some strange reason, the police began to catch feelings. Look, we were campaigning. There's an election going on in Kasama. How then did you expect that a police officer would go in the middle of the road and mount a blockade to say we were in a procession? We're not supposed to be in a procession. I say to him, the procession is part of the campaign. That's our strategy. We're campaigning using a roadshow. He was adamant. I walked up to him and said, okay, can I then walk? He was still uncomfortable with that. So it was very difficult to help him. But we told him that we know our rights, and if we continue on that trajectory, we're just going to take a walk, and that's going to be worse than driving through town. I think he may have been advised by his colleagues that what he was doing was totally unlawful. I mean, you can't have a law enforcement officer breaking the law, you know, in the middle of the road. So we asked him to move away, and that's how we made our way back to the campaign center.
You seem to have a very great relationship with Kasama and some form of attachment to the place. You worked there as provincial minister, but my question is, how critical is the mayoral seat for the PF in Kasama?
Well, of course, I'll answer it in two ways. Political is very critical because, like I said, over Chawama,
yeah,
that election will provide a platform through which the Zambian people in Kasama, in Northern Province, will be able to give some feedback to government on how they're governing.
Yeah.
So it's a very critical election. Secondly, it's a mayoral seat. It was our seat. We need to replace the late Kolala with Yuda Chikwete, Peter Yuda, who's our candidate in that particular election. So it is very important. Elections are very important, especially in the election year. As political parties, you also gauge your strength using elections. There's no other way. You have to go to an election to know how weak or how strong you are. So it will be very important. That's a precursor. You know, we
yeah,
even as opposition political parties who we'll gauge our strength using that particular election. So we're all looking forward to it. And we know for sure that most of the farmers who were not paid for their maize are actually in that part of the country. And people whose businesses closed on account of prolonged hours of load shedding are also in Kasama and Lukasha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so really the people they're eager to speak to government on the number of challenges that they face. So that it's very critical.
Well, you're watching BM8 Unfiltered, and I am here discussing with our presidential aspirant, Honorable Brian Mundubile, who is going to have a conversation, an unfiltered conversation with you and me. This is why you need to send in your questions, contributions on our WhatsApp, as well as on Facebook here. So if you send those particular ones, I'll be able to read them out and he'll be able to respond to those. A lot of you have already sent in videos and all of that, and he will be responding to those in just a little bit. But as we progress, a lot of people have been asking questions about the proposed special purpose vehicle. And this particular special purpose vehicle is going to be used in 2026, and we have very few months leading up to that particular election. Where do you stand on the issue of the SPV, the special purpose vehicle for this particular upcoming election?
Well, the scenario is that under Tonse, we've been able to participate in elections using an SPV. The first 2 or 3 by-elections, we used the SCP as a special purpose vehicle. The 4th one was under FDD. And in this particular case, the Chawama one and the Kasama one has been under FDD. Yeah, so you obviously don't discuss strategy, on national television. Yeah, so the point I'm making is that there's nothing unusual. Yeah, we've been at it. We've been using special purpose vehicles in the past election, the recent elections. So there'll be nothing unusual going forward, to choose a special purpose vehicle for a particular election, including the general election.
But maybe the worry is that if you do it too late, then introducing people to this particular special purpose vehicle might be just so difficult. How do you respond to that?
Tonse is umbrella. The focus is on Tonse. Tonse is umbrella. That umbrella is being sold right now. People know that they belong to Tonse, and they know that under Tonse, Tonse has a number of parties, and it's very easy to pull an SPV under Tonse. I'm sure by now you know the PND. You don't tell them about which SPVs they're going to use. They're going to find some reason to do a convention at Mulungushi. They will deliver 300 soldiers. ZNBC will be broadcasting live. There will be calls from State House for delegates. And some money will change hands. Then that party will be taken over by some fellow, and the drama will continue. So you've got to be careful with these guys.
Interesting. Now that you're back in Lusaka, we saw reports that you're due for an arrest over a private matter involving the PF. And if you may just kindly be unfiltered, is in the name. Can you share the background of this particular issue, especially where we are right now, like what's happening, so that people understand what that arrest is all about?
Well, we got some information from impeccable sources that there's some schemes in the background. Money was changing hands from some state agents. They were sending some youths to go and make some reports at Woodlands Police, alleging that I was involved in some land transaction, which was unclear, and that I should be arrested. So we got that information. We could not doubt it. We checked it. People were getting ready to do that, and I decided to make that statement. We didn't want our supporters, to get that information and be disturbed, to alert that there's this that is happening in the background, but the movement continues. We begin to fight and speak for the people. And the BM8 movement is on the roll. It's not stopping.
So there's nothing to worry about.
No, there's nothing to worry about. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. Yeah, we maintain a very clean slate. That's how far we've come.
Interesting. Honorable, let's talk about farmers farmers that we saw lining up at commercial banks to receive money from FRA. This was clearly a chaotic maize marketing season. How do you think farmers can be better served, especially when it comes to the supply of maize to FRA and then them receiving the money for their hard-earned yields that they end up waiting for quite a long time? What's your position on this?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to give some background to it. We had some reduced yields in the previous years, and suddenly there was some bumper harvest. The government embarked on a program to buy maize from the farmers, but it looks like they didn't plan for it. So first of all, they stopped export of maize. They stopped or frustrated other buyers from going in the market. They undertook to buy the maize. So when the farmers supplied this maize, government seems to have been overwhelmed. And that maize, as far as I'm concerned, was supplied around July. It's taken 6 months, without farmers receiving their money. So that must be understood before we jump on the way forward. We must understand the gaps and the flaws that are with the existing system. So when you fail to plan, you actually plan to fail. That's what exactly happened. The government jumped on this particular transaction without planning for it. Did not plan for it insofar as storage was concerned and paying the farmer for the actual maize. But soon after they got that maize, we heard that they went looking for markets, sell maize in Malawi before they could pay the farmers. So this is a very good example of poor planning, and that's exactly what happened. So going forward, you know that government is only interested in securing what we call the strategic reserve. You ought to have a strategic reserve. This strategic reserve is there to cushion government in times of need, especially when you experience drought or at the end of an agricultural season before you begin a fresh harvest. Previously, government would secure only 500,000 metric tons. That was improved to about 1 million tons. So at some point, we had enough maize to last 2 seasons. So that maize had been sold by government when they came in around 2022. So it destabilized our food security. So the buffer stock that was being maintained was destabilized, and I think we have struggled to try and stabilize that. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that there is a known quantity that government needs to buy every year to remain food secure. So to resolve the problems for the farmers should be allowed to sell the rest of the resource government has gotten enough maize for food security. There was no need to punish the farmers in the manner the government has done. We know very well that 1 million, 1.5 million tons in our sheds would really secure us as a country. There was excess of 3 million tons. Government could have decided to buy 2 million tons and allow 1 million tons to be marketed. Yeah. So the farmers should have the freedom to sell their maize. So what government is supposed to do, maybe using Zambia National Service, these are things that we're looking at when we're in government. Using National Service, they could secure that quantity of the strategic reserve using government intervention or using National Service, so that what the farmers bring is just a bonus. But at the same time, the farmers will have the freedom to sell their maize to their own preferred buyers. Yeah.
Interesting response to that, but because for the longest time when it comes to this, the farmers, or rather the briefcase buyers, have been villainized to say, look, they take advantage of farmers. So how do you ensure a market for the farmers at the same time, especially when you're in office? How do you ensure a market for the farmers and at the same time protect them in terms of pricing and the like?
Yes, there are several interventions. If you go back there was an introduction of solar milling plants. Do you remember that? We introduced solar milling plants dotted around the country. The initial idea was to introduce value addition so that the farmers didn't just sell maize. They had a solar milling plant, easy and cheap to run within their locality. They could simply supply maize to that solar milling plant. It's milled, and they would sell meal instead of selling maize. So this was an intervention to migrate the farmers from small to medium and medium to large-scale farming. You would not do that if they didn't value add. The profitability for the efforts was a lot more when the value added. So, effort to level stop here, Buchi, by introducing villages, actually in villages, so that it doesn't belong to communities, cooperatives. Farmer with 50 bags of simply deliver to the solar milling plant, add value. I show Bunga. That was the idea. The question: the brief business will always be there. Remember, it's not a forced sale. The farmer is a willing seller, okay, at a particular price. So sometimes they come in to stand in the gap, maybe when they need quick cash to send kids to school and so on. Those will always be there. But on a larger scale, you know, you need to give them freedom to sell them.
There's been a notion that most leaders in Africa, Zambia, and everywhere else work towards an election. So when the election is coming up, things go well. You have a better supply of electricity, fuel comes down, exchange rate does well. What is going to make you different in terms of how you're going to work for the Zambian people?
Which you're referring to the EPND. When you talk about what, are you referring to the EPND?
Well, I'm asking you a question. I want you to answer it.
I'm different from the EPND. You see, the politics is all about the people. Whatever we do starts with the people and ends with the people. When you go to promise people, to say, I'll do A, B, C, D, okay? You're creating a scoreboard. Now, we have 50 kwacha, we have 10 kwacha, we have 250. That's a scoreboard. You're creating a scoreboard. So, Balaba Kasala, the voters, they begin to mark in your first year. If Milimi was at 130, they expect within the first 1 year, it should go somewhere around 70 to 65. Then they know, because they're tracking progress. So it's not something they expect to happen as an event. One year the Milimi is at 50 kwacha. They expect you to put policies in place and they begin to see the prices of Milimi going down. But if the opposite is what is happening, they are already getting you. So the government and governors must raise the standard for their leaders to properly implement what they promise. Because you see, if you're a voter and you are seeing that what your leaders promise is not what they are doing, and you keep quiet, you don't demand, okay? It's who's being affected at the end of the day, okay? So what you expect, especially for youths, you are the elite of this society, okay? You have all the energy, you've got all the research tools, and able to engage your leaders. You must ensure that which your leaders' promise is actually implemented. I'll give you this for nothing. I haven't seen, members of parliament, especially in the urban areas, being engaged in town hall meetings. So when your members of parliament are supposed to be packaged by yourselves, go to Nagatindi Hall, and sit down with your MPs, go through what you expect them to deliver to parliament. But citizens don't do that. They simply leave the MPs to do as they wish. Yeah, so to answer your question, delivering towards elections is not something that I would want to inculcate in my plans to deliver development to the people. So work starts now. You asked me a question. Work starts now. By the time I go on a platform to campaign, I already must be thinking about the current challenges the country is facing. Baba, Bantueno, Bawelda, and all those. Those are the people that are having these challenges. So we must have answers. We must have solutions. If they should have a farmer, like we've been talking, when going into this election, any war-meaning leader must go in to go and address the challenges that farmers are facing, as it were.
Well, thank you very much for that response, and we'll get a lot more from the general public. You're writing to us on our Facebook pages and as well as on all other platforms where we're live. Remember, this is going to be live on various radio stations. So you want to send us your questions in the comment section, and we will be able to respond to that. This is BM8 Unfiltered. I am your host, Buchizia, and I've been in discussion with presidential aspirant for 2026, Honorable Brian Mundubile. We go for a short break. When we come back, we answer all the questions that have been burning on your hearts.
Yeah. My name is Brian Mundubile. As a leader, my duty is clear: to listen without fear, and to speak the truth without compromise, and to stand firmly with the people of this nation. Join me every Friday at 20 hours for BM8 Unfiltered. You can watch live on Facebook and YouTube. For too long, politicians have done all the talking without listening to you. I want to change that. I'm ready to listen. Whether in the village or in the city, I want to hear from you. Record a short 6-second video of your question or message and send it to the WhatsApp number below. And I'll be sure to answer it during the BM8 Unfiltered show on Friday. Tell me how you want Zambia to work for you. Nothing is off limits. Let's build the future of this country together. Hello, Zambia. My name is Brian Mundubile. As a leader, my duty is clear: to listen without fear, and to speak the truth without compromise, and to stand firmly with the people of this nation. Join me every Friday at 20 hours for BM8 Unfiltered. You can watch live on Facebook and YouTube. For too long, politicians have done all the talking without listening to you. I want to change that. I'm ready to listen. Whether in the village or in the city, I want to hear from you. Record a short 6-second video of your question or message and send it to the WhatsApp number below. And I'll be sure to answer it during the BM8 Unfiltered show on Friday. Tell me how you want Zambia to work for you. Nothing is off limits. Let's build the future of this country together. Hello, Zambia.
All right. This particular program is designed for you to learn a little bit more about Honorable Brian Mundubile. He inspires to lead this country forward. Yours is to question him and ask him all those questions that have been burning on your hearts so that he can have an unfiltered conversation with you, the voter. With that said, let's get into the questions that you've been sending through. This one says, what is your policy on the private sector? This current government has overlooked it because of its failure to supply power. The cost of living is high and the minimum wage for the lowest is too low. What is it that you intend to do for those in the private sector?
Okay, I'll be very quick because it's a very wide question. So let's take, for instance, mining. We've been singing about local content, in that the business that is transacted by the mining sector, we must protect. 50% should go to the Zambians. There's a lot of business away from mainstream mining that goes to foreign companies. There was a law in Parliament, an amendment was proposed by one of our MPs. Unfortunately, the executive rejected it. And what was very disappointing that day, 5 ministers actually objected to that very progressive proposal. So the solution number one is to create an environment through which the private sector can thrive. So by coming up with a law that protects local content, that's one way that we can improve the participation of the private sector in that single sector. So we'll go further. In addressing low wages, what's happening now is that the big companies are running away from mainstream mining. They're actually bringing subcontractors to mine on their behalf. They're running out from their responsibilities to maybe pay their workers well. So some of the policies that will be introduced will be what we are calling sector minimum wage. So if we have a sector minimum wage for money, it means that whether you're a driver for a subcontractor or a driver for the main contractor or the mine itself, the salary is set. You know, your employer doesn't run away, doesn't have the responsibility to pay you well because you're in this particular sector. So when you come up with sectoral minimum wages, you actually improve the livelihoods of the workers because most of them are exploited on account of the fact that they're working for subcontractors, or maybe they're working for not the main company, but the other companies that have been subcontracted. So we'll protect both the worker through sectoral minimum wage and also ensure that there's enough business for the private sector.
Yeah.
As regards energy, I think the question there also raises the issues to do with energy. We must understand I think we are generating, our generating capacity is about 3,800 megawatts. Our consumption should just be slightly over 2,000. So if we're generating at full capacity, we have over 1,000 megawatts in terms of power. So clearly, for government should be interested in local business. It must be interested in local and small businesses. These are the ones that actually drive the economy. So with that capacity, there should be no good reason why there should be load shedding. There should be no good reason why there should be load shedding. After all, what's a government there for? A government is there to resolve problems.
We're getting a lot more questions, so I'll just move to another one. And this one is coming through, challenging President Hakainde Hichilema on statistics regarding political violence and tribalism. And it says, Mr. President, how many people were beaten like the way you said? Can you send us the statistics? You mentioned that people in the South were beaten for speaking their language. Stop lying, Mr. President. The Tonga people are leaders. People have been going to Lusaka before you even went to university, and you're looking down on people thinking they cannot think. Where did you get this particular statistic? What's your comment on this one, especially that the tribalism has been a very sensitive area of discussion for the last couple of years?
Maybe one question should be asked. Why is it that it's only this time, and this time only, that every citizen has been overly conscious about their ethnicity? Why? That's a very big question. I will tell you that I grew up with a number of friends. All those colleagues of mine, friends of 40 years plus, are still alive. My best friends were Munalula Lifanu, Hambwalu Momba, Mwemba Momba, Chimunya Mwiga, Joe Weupe, Mubanga Kapili, and the rest of them. Now, if you look at that, we've always lived as Zambians. We never lived according to tribe. So when the president comes up and makes those assertions, it's a source of concern. And what we are saying to the president, please stop it. We are one Zambia, one nation. Mr. President, stop that. We have had friends from time immemorial who are Tongas. Our brothers and sisters from Southern Province are very good people. These are our friends. These are our brothers. We can't allow ourselves to be divided by one man.
But how will you ensure unity once you come into office? Because this you're saying that you can't allow it to be divided, but once you take office, how are you ensuring that there's unity and people just live as Zambians and not separated by tribe?
To start with, I'll change the language. My language will be totally different from President Hakainde's language when I'm addressing the nation. I'll be unity, not division, as the president is doing. It's a starting point. There are a number of interventions, including the provisions in the Constitution, that talks about regional diversity when making appointments. Those are some of the interventions. So it starts with the leader and ends with the leader. If a leader wants to unite the nation will be united because he will speak unity at every juncture. If you look at that statement, President Hakainde Hichilema didn't make that statement once. He's made it over 10 times in the past 4 years that he's been in government. And what do you expect? So if you ask me what I'll do differently, I'll do the exact opposite. I'll preach unity instead of division.
Let's get to Facebook. Chileshe Kachingwe says, what plans do you have for our country if you are voted in? What plans do you have for the economy, load shedding, which we are experiencing? And I'll marry this particular question with one that came through from Frank Banda, who says, do you have a team in place that is currently reviewing efforts to improve sectors such as tourism, health, education? Are you as proactive as possible to ensure that when you come into office, you have a cabinet in place in less than a month or two and not spend more time picking a cabinet when you're supposed to be working?
Of course, we have a very qualified technical team that is working behind us to give us information across the sectors, be it energy, infrastructure, agriculture, tourism, among others. So we're already working on documents based on the past and, of course, capitalizing on the failures that we've experienced in the recent past, as it were. So those teams are busy. They're busy working, giving us information so that as we continue appearing on BM Unfiltered, we'll come with this information that is very clear and easy to understand going forward. The lady there asks about load shedding. I think I did explain. I gave figures in terms of our generation capacity and what our consumption is. So all it takes is political will. So there are two things here, Buchi. Okay, we have the technical stuff. I'll be very different. Okay, not a Mr. Know-it-all. You understand? That's the reason why we hire experts. Okay, experts feed into your. Mine as a politician is to carry the vision. First of all, the vision that I have is that I love Zambia. Okay, and Zambians will be at the center of my policies. So if it's the energy sector, let's pick the energy sector for instance. As we're crafting policies, I will have at the center Nakulu Mutinta Pamakasa. Okay, this is an old lady who is looking after her grandchildren because her daughters died, the mothers of the children. So if there is this policy that we're bringing up, if we want to do load management, Nakulu Mutinta Pamakasa, who is relying on that power to go and cook for her grandchildren on a small one-plate cooker and so on. You find that it will be very easy to deal with the weak and the vulnerable in society.
As you respond to that, you've said quite a lot on how what you're going to do once in office. There's a question that is coming in, and it says there's a lot of confusion in the Patriotic Front. Can you get unfiltered about the confusion? And also, they are relating it to say, once you're in governance, how sure are we that this particular confusion will not spill into your cabinet?
Well, first of all, it must be understood very clearly. It's always good to have some background to whatever is happening. Where is the confusion from? We lost power in 2021. I remember very well, as leader of opposition in the House, we were providing proper checks and balances to the executive. Then suddenly, the party was grabbed from us. It must be understood. The problem in PF is artificial. The president of this republic, President Hakainde Hichilema, decided to grab the largest opposition political party. So the challenges are artificial. Otherwise, how would you explain the inordinate delays to handle these matters in court? Okay? So I just want to put it in perspective. It must be understood that the challenges in the PF are just designed. A few individuals are compromised, okay, working together with the people in the executive so that they frustrate the largest opposition political party to their advantage.
Let's speak to the exchange rate, because this one informed as an importing country, we get affected a lot when the exchange rate makes a few changes. Chola, a businessman, says in Zambia we export more copper and cobalt, but we get paid in kwacha. There is no leadership that can think in those angles. Are we going to attract? Better business? And the future is AI. People will lose their jobs. What is your plan for the labor system?
So we start with the labor system. Well, AI is here to stay, which in case you are wondering. Of course, it's something that we can't avoid. There is need for a lot of innovation within our industries to incorporate AI. But we should not ignore the ethical standards within which this AI must function, as it were. So AI is here to stay, and we cannot avoid it, because that is the way to go. So the other part of the question was on the exports. In, I think 2020, 2019, there was a proposal. There was a proposal that when these companies are exporting copper, the proceeds must be banked in the Zambian banks. And I think there should have been an SI. There should have been a policy direction in that direction. We haven't seen that happen. The idea was, yes, it's your money.
Yeah.
The fact that you're selling Zambian copper, why don't you bring the dollars into Zambia, then begin to spend from Zambia? That way, we're going to have a lot of dollars within Zambia, which was going to positively impact on the exchange rates. We haven't seen that implemented. My suspicion is that our government was simply ignored by the mining houses for whatever reason. Interesting.
Let's ask the question that is one of the questions that has really been burning on people's hearts, and this is coming through from two people. One, Steve Odi, who's commented it in our live, which is currently on Facebook, and he says, "Are you going to form your own political party, or are you going to continue waiting for PF?" Then another one from Moses, who says he's a staunch PF supporter. He says, "Hi, Honorable Brian Mundubile. I am Moses from Ndola, Mundubile. I am a staunch PF supporter. I believe in the calling upon late President Michael Chilifesata, and I want to commend you. I love you so much." And then he says, "But the problem is, Fukeni. If you leave to start your own movement, Brian Mundubile movement, it's good, but we won't win the election in 5 months." How do you respond to that?
Well, the BM8 is not a party. It's not a political party. Okay? You see, I want to respond to Banda. First of all, I must appreciate him for the support. He said he's an ardent supporter, and I must appreciate him for that. You see, politics is all about strategy. And politics is all about strategy. Where we are right now, if you saw our pictures in Kasama, how are we campaigning? How are we campaigning? Is it? Yeah, that's a PF symbol. Okay, the truth of the matter, combined with the other question, is that we don't have the party in our control right now. We can't field under Patriotic Front party. So he agrees with me that there's no time. We're left with no time. But we're also expected to mobilize. We're expected to mobilize our supporters together, so that should we decide on an SPV, okay, we should find these people somewhere together. Are you with me, Buchi?
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be easy if, as a party, we've agreed on an SPV. Are we together? The BM8 supporters simply move to that SPV. If we don't hold them as such, it will be very difficult for us to take account of where our supporters are. We need to hold our supporters. So these are just different strategies. This is just a campaign strategy. I've heard of many other similar campaign strategies, people holding their support. So they should not worry about that. We, as a collective, will find a solution, a special purpose vehicle agreed upon by the parties, so that we field our presidential candidate on that.
How are you planning to include the youths and women? Because this has been the big conversation around political parties, to say, look, how do we put the youths and women in the structures of government? What will be your way through once you're actually elected to office?
Well, interestingly, Buchi, if you look at Constitution Amendment number 2 of 2016, it actually provides under Article 259. It provides for youths, it provides for women and people with disabilities. What hasn't been there is just the political will from governments to ensure that there is equitable distribution of these positions. Something that you must understand is that, you know, if I look at you as a youth, the solutions to your problems will most likely come from you. You understand? Because we're in different worlds, more or less. Not that far, not that much, not as wide. For instance, you look at, we were just talking about AI not very long ago. So when you interact with the youths, something I do very often, apart from my own children, I interact with a lot of youths out there. I want to understand how they think. I want to understand the levels of determination, you know, to succeed and so on. I begin to realize that they actually have answers to their own problems. All they need is help, political will, to be able to craft certain laws that favor them, certain policies that favor them. So, beginning with our party, at every level we incorporate youths. At every level of our party structure, we incorporate youths. So that reflects how the appointments into government will actually be. If today, under the party system, at every level, incorporating youths, and the Constitution directs that in making appointments, they should not only be regional diversity, but also take into account youths, women, and people with disabilities. So sufficient laws. All you have to do is to implement and apply the laws that are available.
All right, as we about to wrap our conversation, I just wanted you to just your final message to the general public, because this is just the first episode of more that are coming. So just what is your final message to the general public that are watching you right now, and what should they expect as we continue to have this particular engagement on this particular platform?
Yes, well, as you rightly pointed out, I want to interact with the people. I want to hear, and whether in the city, whether in the village, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what challenges you're facing. So the fact that it's unscripted, you could see the direction. It could be political in one breath, the next was about the economy and so on. Yeah, so I think this is what I want to do with the people. I want to speak to them. The fact that it's not practical for us to be all over the country every day, I think using this platform, I'll be able to hear what the people are going through. And from the frequency of the questions, I'll also know what is troubling them. At the same time, it's an opportunity for me to interact with the youths. I actually have a package for the youths that will soon be unpackaging. We're just doing the final touches to it. So that's how much we value the youths, and the technical team is working on what I know that the youths are going to like. We'll run with it, and now, even the time that we get into government, this could just unlock some of the challenges that the youths have faced over a period of time.
Well, looking forward to that, and to more conversations with you. This has been BM8 Unfiltered with Honorable Brian Mundubile, and we have been tackling some of your questions that have burdened you for quite a long time. And on the next episode, we will do more of the same and have more of these particular conversations, and you'll get to learn more about Honorable Brian Mundubile. My urge to you is for you to come through and ask all those particular questions. Open up, let us know what it is that is burdening you as a people and as a country. We will be able to curve a new way forward for Zambia. Just stay tuned for more. I've been your host. My name is Buchizia Singini, and this is where we call it a wrap, but we will be back next week at the same time.
Be